Knife watch. I wanted to do a video about case sizes and watch sizes for men and women alike. And I really do not believe that I am an authority on watch case sizes for women. So I'm not going to do a great job on that. But I will add a couple of notes for ideas for where, if you're a man or however you identify, shopping for a woman or somebody who identifies differently, then you're gonna want to get them a watch they're actually gonna like, right? And if you're a man shopping for another man, how do you know if you're gonna get them a watch that's too big or too dainty, make them feel uncomfortable with the choice you make, right? So with Father's Day coming up and it being summertime here in the US, I feel as though it's just topical to talk about what kind of watch size is relatable for different people. So, one of the biggest challenges with online shopping, now that we're in a world where online shopping is the norm, I think the pandemic really changed that. Whether it's a pair of jeans or new sneakers, it's knowing how something will fit you or somebody that you love is really important before you hit that buy button. So surprisingly enough, the same pitfall kind of applies to watches too, right? When you browse online, there's a lot of sizing and fit points that you need to keep in mind so you can find the perfect fitting watch. So we're gonna go through some watches that really hit between the 30 to 40 millimeter lane. I'm gonna go from, I've got an example here. This is my wife's watch. This is a 31 millimeter. Now back in the mid 2000s, I think watch sizing has definitely changed throughout history, but I think as early as the mid 2000s, we saw that watches started getting really big, and they kind of scaled down since then. So this is my wife's Rolex. Yes, I bought a Rolex, and I gave it to my wife because she's the only reason I was able to get the dang thing. She inspired me to be more successful in life, and she really deserves this. And this is a size 31. When I was reading about what watch size to get your wife for a special occasion, something that she'll always cherish, I was seeing sizes. They were basically recommending sizes between 26 or 23 to 29 and 23 to 29. I mean, even a size 29 millimeter watch is really small. So I don't know about the lady of your life, but my wife she could wear any of these watches at any size and feel comfortable. She was actually wearing the Black Bay 58 for a little while. So, she can run the gamut, right? But she really loves this piece. And I think that this is a really good timeless piece for her. It always looks appropriate. It doesn't look too small on her wrist. Never looks too big, obviously. But let's get into some of the modern tastes which we have gravitated towards. Watch styles with larger cases are more in vogue right now. But smaller watches are also still in style for men. There's a huge movement right now for watches that are 36 millimeters. Everybody's talking about the Rolex Explorer, the brand new one, even the two-tone and 36 millimeters. So this is one of my top choices for a, if you can't get a 36 millimeter Explorer, or a 36 millimeter Black Bay from Tudor, you can definitely get the Lorier Falcon 2 with a waffle dial, which I think looks absolutely spectacular. So this is a 36 millimeter watch, right? The correct size comes down to preference and what size feels, most comfortable for you. But 36 millimeters is a very intriguing size. Sorry, wristwatch check. I'm wearing the Tudor Glamour Date Day with diamond indices. And this is a 39 millimeter, but not really the subject of this video, but we can leave this on the side here for glamour points, right? So I'm gonna put on the 36. You guys tell me what you think, okay? Is this too small for a men's watch? I'd argue no. Yeah, I do wear my watches on my right hand. I'm left-handed. No, it's not. So I have this bracelet a little bit tighter, so it's gonna go earlier or below the bone, as they say, for my wrist bone on my hand. And I think it has a really nice wrist presence and doesn't look too small, right? It kind of actually looks perfect. When you put on the 36 millimeter watch, for some reason it looks correct. Now, is that because we've seen a ton of 36 millimeter watches by Rolex that have popularized the date just? That's a classic, and nobody who's into watches is unfamiliar with the 36 millimeter date just. It's basically one of the faces of the watch industry. And one of the things that made watches just iconic in the 80s, especially that two-tone Datejust, right? But 36 millimeters looks awesome. And I think this is as small as I would go for a purchase for me at the moment, but it doesn't feel small. I think this is an appropriate size. We'll get into thinness in a moment because the case thickness is really important, right? But before I get to that, I just want to mention that this is, just so you guys know, this is a 36, this is a 37, this is a 38, this is a 39, okay? So you got all your sizes from 36 to 39, just so you can keep that for reference as we go. Anyway, but historically a thin watch kind of meant a better watch. You know, if it was thin, it would fit under a sleeve or a cuff, and that was important for business meetings where you may or may not want to show off your watch, but in general, you just didn't want your watch to be wrinkling your shirt or getting in the way during your day. This is an incredibly thin watch here by Lorier. I really recommend you check out the Lorier Falcon 2, which to me, it's their best overall watch. And I think it's a watch, it's definitely a one watch collection type of piece that I would recommend to any and all people. I've got a video that I'll pop in for you guys to check out. But today, you know, watch tastes have changed with ever-growing case diameters, and they're definitely different sizes that they're really popular. You know, chronographs can get really thick, but the case thickness has proportionally increased over time. Even if the additional space is not really needed, for some reason, some watches, they get really thick, and that also has something to do with that. And if you got a really thick watch, you can't really wear certain types of straps or bracelets because it'll just be too much wrist presence. But if you have a watch that's too dainty, it might look like it's going to break, or it just looks inappropriate for the kind of vibe of the outfit you're wearing or what kind of interview you're going on. Again, with everything we're discussing here today, proportion and moderation is important, but case thickness is often overlooked. But it's an incredibly practical consideration whenever you're looking for a watch. And you know, if you typically wear a watch to work and you actually go to work instead of working from home, a thick case can kind of bunch up or stretch your jacket sleeve. It is true. So a dress watch with a thinner case is a great option for people. But what about for everyday watches, right? I'm really an everyday watch kind of person. I really am looking for those one watch collection pieces. This is a 37 millimeter watch. I've got it here on a bund strap. This is the Seiko 5 SNK 803. I think this is the 803. Sorry if I get that wrong, correct me in the comments, but I love this cream dial. This is actually my first automatic watch ever that I've ever bought. And what's really cool about it is that it actually comes with a see-through case back. So guys, I got this for 70 bucks on Amazon, I think, right? So if you want to get into the watch game, this is how I started my collection. Okay, I had no watches except for a G-Shock that I wore to my wedding. Is that embarrassing or what? Yeah, this is actually my first automatic piece, and this is 37 millimeters. I've got it on a bund strap. So if this watch was really, really thick, a bund strap means that, you know, you've got a whole nother layer, basically a belt underneath your watch that makes it very thick. So what I love about the Seiko 5 SNK series specifically is like they've got these field watches that are very legible. I wish every watch had this much legibility. You know, the way that it's so easy to read because it tells you like this is 6 and this is 6:30. This is to me an excellent watch for a younger person as well that's trying to learn how to read automatic watches. And you may, if you're embarrassed about how hard it is for you to read watches, you know, like this that really don't have any numbers on them, listen, don't be embarrassed. I was a little bit nervous that when I bought my first automatic watch, I wouldn't know how the hell to read the time. So I actually did get into, this watch, and I couldn't stop staring at it. I just pulled the trigger. I said, 70 bucks, that's a lot of money for a watch. My, how things change. But, if you want to wear a watch like this is not too thick, right? It's a pretty thin watch, 37 millimeters, looks great. And the bund strap actually makes it present larger. So 37 is sort of an awkward size. It doesn't look small, but it doesn't look like it's enough at the same time. Whereas 36, for some reason, you guys saw it. It looks great. Scroll back if you don't believe me. But this, I had to put a bun strap on it to give it a little bit of wrist presence because it just is an awkward 37 millimeter size. Anyway, let's move on, right? So that's what I did. That was the solution for me for this. And I think the bun strap, it looks great. You know, it's got the wrist presence now. That 37 millimeters is not awkward, but I mean, there aren't many watches that really come in at that 37 millimeter size. And I think there's a reason. So just very interesting, right? You don't see that size, but you do see a lot in this size. 38 millimeters. This is the Baltic. This is a worn and wound limited edition. It's the prize of my collection, honestly. If you believe it or not, this watch actually sells for almost 6 times for retail in some cases. I've been offered as high as $2,650 for this watch. This is a $675 watch, people. But that's how much people love this watch. This is the worn and wound Salmon dial, and this is 38 millimeters, but it's also a chronograph, right? So I'm cheating a little bit. This actually has a little bit more wrist presence than a normal 38 millimeter watch, but I would just want you to see what a chronograph looks like as well. Since this is in the middle of the sizing comparisons we're looking at here, I wanted you to see how a chronograph can also add and throw in a kind of like a boomerang in here, right? It kind of makes you think that it's a smaller watch, but also has some size to it because of these pushers. And I love chronographs just stylishly wise. What they can do is provide a lot more wrist presence, but also a little bit of a cool feature that not a lot of people will know about. So you got a talking point whenever you talk about your watch. Not super duper thin, but not super thick for a chronograph. This is manually wound. If you get an automatic chronograph, they're going to be a lot thicker. But that really matters too. So in this point, let's talk about lugs, right? We haven't talked about watch lugs at all, which do definitely affect the way that you think about the watch size. So watch lugs are these steel, typically metal extensions where the watch case attaches to the bracelet and then thusly the strap. And these lugs are typically not factored into sizing. They actually kind of stick out further than the case's diameter measurements, but lug to lug is a big deal when you're talking about watches, because you really do need to know if you have the wrist span or the wrist length to rock a watch that you actually want to rock. So this is the 38 millimeter. And I mean, yeah, guys, you know, above the bone, I put this chronograph and it looks awesome. Below the bone, this chronograph just looks straight bossy. I mean, it's like you walk into a meeting, somebody peeps the Salmon dial chronograph with a vintage inspired subdials and sector dial and railroad track. I mean, this is, guys, this is you're gonna get the job if you wear this on an interview, okay? There's only one of 100 pieces of these. Anyway, hopefully your potential employer is a watch fan. But anyway, we're talking about lugs, right? So, you know, when you're measuring your wrist for which size diameter you prefer, you should actually leave breathing room for the lugs because these will slightly elongate the height of the watch. So you see how it's on a strap here, and there's a little bit of space between the strap and the actual case. In here, if you got some long lugs, man, that could actually make or break the look of a watch. Like Nomos has extremely long lugs. If you get a 38 millimeter Nomos watch, you've got to have some wrist span for that. So I've got a 7-inch wrist, 7.25, 7.25 millimeter wrist whenever you're actually, 7.25 inch wrist when it's hot. So I don't really want to wear a watch where the lugs are too long because I'd actually like my watch and my strap to kind of feel like they're one piece. I don't really want too much skin between. That's just me. But you know, you don't want to watch where the lugs extend out over your wrist and it's uncomfortable to wear. That can look kind of kooky. So bracelets and straps really make a difference. So that's why for this 39 millimeter example, I've got, this is the best watch in the world, dollar for dollar. Don't at me, bro. This is the best watch you can get pound for pound. So this is the Tudor Black Bay 58 in size 39 millimeters with a really great thickness, or I should say thinness, right? It looks very compact. The lugs aren't too long. Everything about this watch is pretty much perfect. Some people complain about these faux rivets, and I gotta tell you, if you don't like the faux rivets, that's okay. Just send me your bracelet. I will gladly hoard your watch bracelets, guys, if you don't like them. But anyway, back to women's watches real quick. I don't want to forget about them, right? Most women's watch straps actually measure between 6.75 to 7 inches, and men's typically like 7 to 8 inches. And leather, synthetic, or non-metal bracelet straps are easy to fit, given that they've got these pre-made holes in them. But metal bracelets can be adjusted by a jeweler or yourself. You take some screws and, a screwdriver, and you undo these screws, and you can size the watch yourself, which is great. With a strap, obviously you just pick a hole and whoa, that sounded weird, so I'm just gonna move on. So yeah, this leather deal that comes on the Tudor Black Bay 58, it looks great too, but I find that leather on divers will get you a lot of Instagram comments that you may not like. So I like to wear my divers with steel whenever I can, but I honestly don't care. This is a fairly dressy watch and it's sort of a strap monster, but the width of your watch strap or bracelet will also depend on the case diameter and lug width here. So the larger the case diameter, the further apart the lugs will be typically. But here's a little bit of a caveat, right? Is that also could not make a difference. For example, the lug width compared to these case diameters is so interesting, okay? If you're still watching this video, thank you. I'm really glad you're interested in case diameter. I never thought I would do a video on this, but this is a 36 millimeter watch with a 20 millimeter lug width, okay? You follow me? And this is also a 39 millimeter watch with the same exact lug width. So when I buy a strap for my Lorier Falcon 2, it'll also fit my Black Bay 58, right? So if I get some really cool, sexy watch strap from Moleskine, no, this is not sponsored, and I wish they were paying me, right? But I could put this watch on I could put this strap on either watch and be excited. This is also a 38 millimeter watch that has the same exact lug width as these two watches. The best is 20 millimeters typically, but you're also going to get watches where you have other, sizes. For example, my Tudor Glamour Date Day, this is a 39 millimeter watch as well. They're the same case diameter in terms of like width from side to side, not including this crown here, but the lug width is different. This lug width is 21 millimeters, so it's got a little bit more presence in the bracelet. It tapers differently in the bracelet. It kind of wears and presents a little bit larger on wrist. It's got a lot of wrist presence. This watch looks much bigger than my Black Bay 58 on wrist, and I really love that I have that differentiation when I need it. And this is sort of my dressy sports watch. So when I'm feeling like I need to make a power move or I got a really important meeting, I love that I have that wrist presence, right? So 20 millimeters is sort of that sweet spot. And then you've got this 37 millimeter that has, this is a larger case diameter, but this has 18 millimeter lug width. So, you've actually got a smaller lug width here. And that also changes the way that it wears. And maybe that sort of adds to the awkwardness that I was talking about before. Either way, that's pretty much the topic that I wanted to go over here. I'm really glad that you guys tuned in, and I hope you're enjoying the kind of content that I'm making here. Please let me know, what do you think about watch sizes? What size works best for you? Do you have a formula that you figured out? I won't go below 36 for me personally, and I probably wouldn't go above 41, 42, although I do love my Casio Duro. That's, I think, over 44 millimeters. But yeah, what do you guys think? Please tell me if you really love watches, which watch you love specifically, what are the case diameter dimensions. If we can get a whole bunch of comments filled with case diameter measurements, I would love that. Let's talk about size. I don't think that size matters as much as the quality of the timepiece, but I do think that fit is really the most important thing. This size, 36 millimeters, it doesn't matter as much as how they fit on my wrist and how they work with me. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway, peace and love. Like and subscribe. Knife Watch out.